Ừ. Ada bukuan.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, so there is a link in the chat box. It's for the attendance. I don't know if Daniel has opened the form yet. Daniel,
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, I've opened the form.
okay, please fill the form. Sign in, please. So I'll leave the form for the next 2 minutes. I think Daniel is checking the form now for the next 2 minutes so that you fill the attendance. Our trainer is already here. Welcome, sir. I've made you the co-host now, and I think we'll be starting by exactly 2:08 p.m. Nigeria time. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation. It's really a privilege having you here. So, and the session is actually for 40 minutes and 10 minutes for questions and answers. So, sir, you can go ahead from now. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, can everybody see me?
Yes, we can see you, sir.
Okay, good. So, yes, I always want to see my face. Okay, good. So, good morning from, okay. So good morning from Philadelphia. I know it's afternoon in Nigeria, but it's 9:00, excuse me, it's 9:09 a.m. here in Philadelphia. So I want to thank the association for inviting me to give this training on negotiation. All right. I know that it's a medical student association, but I hope there'll be other people on the attendance as well, right? People that may not be medical students, but ultimately might have roles to play in public health. All right. So basically, I'm going to do something like a definition. I'm going to define what negotiation is. And then after that, I'll just, tell you a little bit about where you can use negotiation, and then I'll also talk about some characteristics of a good negotiator. And then we now go into the nitty-gritty details about how to perform negotiation successfully. So, so the Cambridge Dictionary says that negotiation is the process of discussing something with someone in order to reach an agreement with them. I'm going to say that again. So negotiation, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is the process of discussing something with someone in order to reach an agreement with them. So the two important factors there, it's one person or one group interfacing with another person or another group. So you can negotiate with yourself, right? You negotiate with somebody else, or your group negotiates with another group. And then the ultimate goal of negotiation is to reach an agreement. Now, an agreement might not be what this group and the other group thought of going into the negotiation, right? So one group might say, oh, we want to achieve this. And then the other group is already thinking, who are these guys? Where are they coming from? What do they want, right? But you see that sometimes they might go into that negotiation. And after like a few days, some time, some hours, some back and forth emails and all of that, further meetings, they reach an agreement, which may not be exactly what the initial, proponents of the deal or of the project, had in mind. But at least it's an agreement, right? So that's what negotiation is about. It's about two sides or more coming together, having a conversation, having a discussion. It can be in person like this. It can be via Zoom, it can be via meetings, it can be via emails, it can be via, oh, send me the PowerPoint, let me read it, So long as there's communication, right? And then the ultimate goal is that some form of agreement was realized. It may not be the perfect one that the original proponents were looking for, but at least something was agreed on. And maybe there were some documents were signed, and then some monies were paid to start the project. And then everybody just moved on with life, right? So that's what negotiation is about. Now, I want us to distinguish negotiation from undue influence, right? So some textbooks will tell you negotiation and influencing is the same thing, right? But I respectfully beg to differ. All right. So you know about what we call social media influencers, right? They come out on Instagram, on Twitter, they try and help advertise some products and services. They're trying to influence you as a buyer, as a consumer, to buy those products. That's an influencer. That is influencing. It's not the same thing with negotiation. So when you go on Twitter or you go on Facebook and you go on Instagram and you see a comedian in Nigeria or a musician from Ghana, and he says, I use this brand of glasses, and I think this brand of glasses is good for you. It's very nice, it looks good, and the refractive errors are minimal, everything is perfect. That's not negotiation. It's an advertiser, it's an influencer, it's trying to influence your consumer behavior. So that for those of you that use glasses, when you want to get glasses, you can get glasses from that brand. That's all. So influencing is not the same thing as negotiation. It's not, right? A lot of textbooks say they're the same, but they're not. Now, undue influence, and I'm going to type it. Undue, that's UNDUE. Undue influence it's not negotiation at all. And it's not even influence. When someone says you're exerting undue influence, it's becoming illegal, it's becoming immoral, right? It's becoming unethical. All right. And undue influence is when you're trying to make somebody do something, usually, and you're going over and beyond the limits of professional conduct, professional behavior, professional courtesy. Yes, that is undue influence. Usually it might be a boss trying to force a subordinate to do something, all right? Or it might be a colleague forcing his other colleague or other colleague to do something else. That is undue influence. That's not what we're talking about here today, all right? Undue influence can also happen when, for example, maybe the Ministry of Health in the States, in Nigeria, or in a province in Ghana, tries to put too much pressure on the Ministry of Finance for a particular project. And it begins and does it over and beyond the limits of professional conduct. You're shouting, you're yelling, you're threatening that, this has to work. If it doesn't work, all hell will break loose, or there's going to be a disaster, or there's going to be Ebola, That is undue influence, right? And then there's coercion and threats. Coercion is when you almost subtly forcing somebody to do something against their will. All right? You're coercing someone. A lot of examples usually, again, has to do with, a boss, a leader, and a follower, a boss and a subordinate. You shouldn't coerce people. And then you shouldn't threaten people. So negotiation is not coercion. Negotiation then is not threats. You don't threaten people. In negotiation, in clinical medicine and in public health, I'm going to discuss them. It's a more structured and a more respectful process. The other thing I want to distinguish negotiation from is bribery and corruption, right? You don't offer money to people. You don't offer gifts to them unnecessarily, unsolicited, unwarranted. Even if it's solicited, you don't offer gifts to people. That's bribery and corruption, right? That is not negotiation. So I know some of you, all of you are medical students, most of you are medical students, you'll become house officers I remember when I was doing my house officer job in Nigeria, and then, some of these pharmacists would come to the clinic in Lagos and they will offer us like, excuse me, they'll offer us like pens, pens that we can use to write. They'll offer us notepads. They will offer us, some of them will offer you calculators, so you can calculate your dose for those who are treating diabetic patients who want to like calculate their dose and all that. In some parts of America, it's illegal for you to do that. It's illegal for a pharmaceutical company. It's illegal for a pharmaceutical company to send so-called pharmacy reps, like they call them in Nigeria. When I was in Nigeria, I finished, I left medical school 14 years ago. So I did house job about 13 years ago, right? So those so-called pharmacy reps will come, they'll give us gifts. Sometimes they'll even buy us food, please, try and use this calculator to calculate your the dosages for your patients, try and prescribe our drug for them. It's not cajoling, right? They're not cajoling you. They're doing what some people call influencing, something like what we call influencers right now, brand influencers in social media. It's similar to that. But because it has been found that sometimes doctors' prescribing behavior might be affected by what they get from these pharmacy reps, it has been illegal in many states in America. And in some other parts of the developing world, you can't send, if you're a pharmaceutical company like Pfizer, Novartis, Merck, GSK, whatever, you can't send pharmacy reps to hospitals to go give doctors or nurses gifts. Even if it's just simple things like biros or wallets or calculators, you can't do that. It's illegal, right? Right. So you have to distinguish negotiation from undue influence, coercion and threats, and bribery and corruption. They're not the same. They're not the same. In negotiation, it's very respectful, very professional, it's very measured, and I'll describe a lot of that right now. So where do we use negotiation in public health and clinical medicine? There's several ways you can use negotiation in public health and clinical medicine. One of them is what we call quality improvement and operations management. Now, for those of you who will go on to do master's degrees in public health or master's degrees in business administration, MBA, some people do an MBA in healthcare management. You're going to take a course called quality improvement and operations management. And essentially what that means is a course where you're taught how to improve the quality of care that patients receive. And usually what this might entail will be rearranging how you operate your hospital or your healthcare facility. So for example, you might say, oh, why are we having patients coming through the emergency and they spend up to 1 hour in the emergency, trying to see a doctor, trying to see a nurse who's going to set a line, blah, 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 before they get into the ward. How can we shorten that time frame that they spend in the emergency center before they transfer them to the ward? So what can you do? One, you can increase the number of staff that are in the emergency room so they can quickly see patients and transfer them. You can expand the space of the emergency center so you can, break the wall and expand the room. And you can say, let's do triage, right? So when people come into the emergency, let's quickly triage them and place them on their level of severity. Are you really, really severe that needs emergency? Or can we just basically just treat you and just take care of you in the mini recess, the mini room just before the emergency center? So that is quality improvement and operations management. Right? Usually that will involve doctors sitting in the same room with nurses, sitting in the same room with hospital managers, some of them who didn't go to medical school, some of them read business or finance, accounting, right? And sitting down together and discussing what you want to do. Now, you're going to need negotiation skills in those kind of meetings. If you're a doctor, if you're a physician who has done residency in emergency medicine, and you're really serious about emergency medicine, you're really passionate about emergency medicine, you're even doing research. Some of these residencies in America, they allow you to do your master's while you're doing residency, right? And so you're very passionate about, oh, I want to make sure the quality of care in the emergency room is very optimal. However, the guys who are doing the management of the hospital, they don't really, yes, they care about emergency medicine, but they probably don't care about emergency medicine to the level at which you care. They really just want to make sure that the bottom line is a line when you're looking at a budget sheet or a financial sheet in accounting. For those of you who are going to do a master's in business administration, you'll take a course in financial accounting. The bottom line is that last line there. They call it the bottom line because it shows all your monies you've raised in terms of revenue, all your expenses and expenditures and everything, and then whatever is left that we can run with, that's the bottom line. So these guys are more concerned about the finance and the money of the hospital. You are the doctor, they're not doctors. And then the nurses are concerned about, oh, I want to make sure my student nurses are not standing for too long. Why would you say we need more nurses on the emergency room? So this is where there can be conflict. And this is where you need negotiation. The other one is public health advocacy. For those of you who are going to do masters in public health, do a PhD, do a DRPH, public health advocacy is when you're trying to convince government. Usually it might be the executive arm of government, so the president, the governor, the local government chairman, blah, blah, blah. Or it could even be the legislative arm of government, so the Federal National Assembly in Abuja, for example, or a state assembly, like in Lagos, I think it's in Alausa, Ikeja, right? And you want to bring a project, and you want to convince the government to not just only back you in terms of money. Sometimes you might not even need the government's money. You might already have your money, but you just want the government to create that enabling environment for your project to thrive. So you've gone ahead, you've applied for funding from the US government, you've applied for funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they've given you $2 million, you're ready to run the project. But you need to talk to Lagos state government so they can work with you. That's public health advocacy. You need negotiation skills for that. The third one is fundraising, right? Again, in public health, again, in clinical medicine. If you're a doctor, if you're the chair of the Department of OBGYN, for example, and you want the dean of the College of Medicine to expand access to care, you need money to do that. So when the dean says, oh, doctor, blah, 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 come to my office or set up a meeting with my secretary so we can have a meeting next week or next month, you have to go into those meetings with your negotiation cap well fit on your head. Because you can't just ask people for money just because you think they know that these things are important. You know, it's good to have access to healthcare for women. Yes, they know, but they might not know it to the level of detail or level of passion that you know it. So if you're going to ask people for money to support your public health programs, to support your clinical medicine initiatives, you need to have negotiation skills. The next one is policy design. So when you're designing a policy, for those of you who's going to work with the government, so this is not policy advocacy. Policy advocacy, you're outside government. You're trying to tell government that, oh, I need this. Oh, we need this. The people of Nasarawa State need this. The people of Oyo State need this. Please help us get this. That's public advocacy. Public advocacy. In policy design, you actually work in the government. So, for example, you work with the governor of Oyo State, right? Mr. Makinde. You work maybe a senior special assistant to him on health, right? You are in the government. You're not outside the government. And so you are primarily responsible for policy design. So you're going to be working with the Commissioner of Health. You're going to be working with the Commissioner of Finance, you know, there's the Commissioner of Budget and Planning, whatever. You're designing policies. You're designing policies in government. When you're designing policy, you also need negotiation skills. Because you need to understand that when you're implementing a policy, especially a policy that was not originally in existence, it's a different case if there was a policy and now you're trying to modify the policy. That's a different case. But when you're designing a policy ab initio, right, you need to understand that this policy will shift the paradigm a little. Some will even shift the paradigm completely. And so if that is going to happen, you have to be ready to negotiate with those who may be affected or who may query and question you, why are we having this policy like this? Now, the next one is policy implementation, right? So you've designed a policy. You spoke to these same people. One thing you realize, for those of you, who will eventually go and work with government and all that, one thing you realize is you can have meetings with some people when you're doing policy design. right? Have some meetings with them, have a negotiation process with them, and agree on the policy. And you'll be shocked that when that policy has been designed, it's been printed, the government, the governor, they came, they had a big meeting, it was all over the page of the newspaper, it's been announced. The policy has been announced. Now it's time for the policy implementation. So you're going on to all the primary health centers in Kogi State, you're going to all the primary health centers in Nasarawa State, you're going to all the primary health centers in Adamawa State to find out how this implementation of this policy is working. And then you start to see problems. These were problems that some of them you anticipated them when you were doing the policy design, but you thought you had them under control. But now those problems are rearing their ugly heads again. You need negotiation for policy implementation. And the last one I will say is conflict resolution. So be ready for conflict. Conflicts will always happen. In public health, in clinical medicine, you'll always have clashes, right? Some people will just not like the way you are trying to propose a plan or a project. And so there'll be conflict resolution. So you need negotiation for that. So now that we've discussed about why or how negotiation can be used in public and clinical medicine, what are the characteristics of a good negotiator? The first one is a good negotiator is patient. You're patient, but you're not slow. There's a difference between being patient and being sluggish. There's a difference between being patient and being slow. So you're patient, but you're not slow. You're agile, but you're patient. You're patient because you understand that negotiation takes time. And it's not exactly the way you plan it. It will come out immediately. It might take time. And even it might take weeks and months and even years, it still may not get to that point where you expected it should be in your head. So the characteristic of a good negotiator is patience. You have to be very patient. The second one is respectful and being polite. You have to be respectful and polite, but not shy. If you are shy, you can't be a good negotiator. A minimal level of confidence, but you have to be respectful and polite. A bad negotiator is not respectful. A bad negotiator is rude. If you're rude, people will destroy your work. They wouldn't let your work be successful. If you're respectful and polite, then you can negotiate your way. The third one is a good negotiator is deeply knowledgeable about the issues. You cannot be a negotiator of trying to raise increased funding, not just increase funding from the government, but also increase implementation at primary healthcare level for maybe, let's say, insecticide-treated nets or malaria control in Adamawa State or Akwa Ibom State. And you don't know the pathophysiology of malaria. You don't know the epidemiology of malaria. You have to know the technical nitty-gritty of what you're negotiating on. There's absolutely no excuse for not knowing that. So if you know that is not your field, you cannot negotiate. You can hire somebody as a consultant. You can hire a junior staff who has a master's, who has a PhD, who knows. You need to know the nitty-gritty, the technical details. What is the dose? Ciprofloxacin, is it 500 milligrams? What is it? Is it the one that is done with tinidazole? You need to know. If you don't know the technical details, you cannot negotiate. Because people will ask you questions and you can't say, I don't know, or I think so, or I don't have an idea. No. So you have to be a subject matter expert to actually be a negotiator. Yes. The fourth one is you have to know the principles of being legal, being ethical, and being moral. Before you do anything, before you proceed with anything, ask yourself, is this legal? If this is illegal, I will not be a part of it. If this is unlawful, I will not be a part of it. And the law of Nigeria is very straightforward. Law of most African countries are very straightforward. In America, laws might have different meanings when you go to what state are you practicing in. So you must always be on the right side of the law. The last thing you want to do as a doctor is end up in jail. The last thing you want to do as a doctor is getting sued and having to pay millions in damages in court. So you need to always ask yourself, what I'm proposing, is this thing legal or it's illegal? If it is illegal, don't be a part of it. Don't negotiate for an illegal process. Don't do that. Don't try to negotiate for something that you know is illegal. That is just stupid. You shouldn't do that as a doctor. And then ask yourself, is it ethical? If you're having problems understanding what ethics means, a lot of these universities and teaching hospitals, they have what they call ethics committees. Set up a meeting with them and ask them, sir, ma'am, this thing we want to do, what do you think about it from an ethical standpoint? They will advise you. That's their work. And then the last one is moral. Is it moral? Is it moral? The last thing you want is immoral, anything immorality. You don't want to have anything to do with immorality at all. Ask yourself, how did your parents raise you? How did your professors raise you? This thing I'm negotiating for, is it moral? Does it go with my moral values? If it does not, you should not negotiate on it. Wash your hands off it and go. So the three things you want to check is it legal? Is it ethical? And is it moral? Is it moral? Is it moral? You always have to ask yourself that. Is it moral? And some people might say, oh, but people's moralities are different. Some people's moralities are based on religion. Some people's moralities are based on ethnicity, whatever. You can say that. But in your conscience, you know what your moral values are. And I doubt if you would say your moral values is, oh, I was raised up to be a bad person. No, that's not that. You can't say that. You can't say, oh, my moral values is how to be a bad person. No, you can't say that. You can't. And the last one is communicate, communicate, communicate. An excellent negotiator is an excellent communicator. If you can't communicate, you're a bad negotiator. You can never be a negotiator. You must be able to communicate to your boss. Usually what will happen is if you get a job when you finish medical school or you finish your master's or you finish residency, you'll probably have most likely have a supervisor who will send you into those negotiation meetings. When you come back, you have to be able to debrief your boss, debrief your supervisor, and tell them, sir, man, this is what we found. This is what we talked about. This is what we agreed on. These are the next steps. This is the next time we meet. So you have to be able to communicate up. That's to your boss. You also have to be able to communicate down to people that work beneath you. Then you also have to communicate sideways to your colleagues. And also even to the other side, the opposing side. Excellent communication is critical. Without communication, you cannot be a negotiator. If you speak bad English, if you write poorly, people can't see your PowerPoint. You can't do nice PowerPoint. You can't write Microsoft Word very well. Your Excel is always fuzzy. You speak bad grammar. People have to correct you. You can't be a negotiator. You can't. You have to work on that first. You can be a subject matter expert. You can know everything about malaria, about Plasmodium. But if you're not good in speaking English and writing English and developing clean PowerPoints that can communicate your point aggressively, clearly, you can't be a negotiator. Now, so what are the steps in negotiation in public health and clinical medicine? The first thing you need to do is know the other side. Who are they? Now, I call them the other side. Notice I didn't call them the opposing side, because sometimes they may not necessarily be opposing what you're saying or what you're doing. They're just the other side you have to convince. So in a negotiation, there's this side, which is you, and then there's the other side, which you're trying to convince. Know them very well. Who are they? Where are they coming from? Why do they feel so passionately different about the issue? So you're a doctor. You work in emergency medicine. You're trying to negotiate with the nurses that you want more of their students on every shift so that we can reduce that time that patients spend in the emergency room. And they are saying, why do you want to stress our nurses? Why do you want to stress our student nurses? You need to understand why they're saying that. Oh, it's true. These nurses overwork. They do 12-hour shifts. You have to think like them a little. Understand why they feel. Know who they are. These are nurses. Who are nurses? Nurses are people who went to secondary school, they passed WAEC, then they went to nursing school for social number of years, then they did midwifery, whatever. You need to know who they are. You cannot negotiate with people you don't know who they are. You need to know who they are. Know who they are, know where they're coming from, and know why they feel so passionately different about the issue from you, from your own thoughts. The second thing you want to do is you want to know all the technical details of the issue at hand. I've said this before, so I won't spend too much time on it. You have to be a subject matter expert on anything you're negotiating on. If you did residency in internal medicine at UCH Ibadan or Bafinaolo University Hospital, and you're trying to negotiate something with some people on women's health, call your friend who is an OBGYN, call your friend who's a pediatrician, call your friend who's a neonatologist, tell them to come and join your negotiation team. You need subject matter expertise to be a good negotiator. You cannot negotiate when you don't know what you're talking about. So know all the technical details of the issue at hand. Know what you are proposing. What are you proposing? What are the technical details of what you're proposing? You need to know them. What are the problems your proposal aims to solve? All right. And then what is the root cause analysis of the problem? You see, let me tell you something. I tell people all the time. I went to business school, right? For my first master's. I went to business school. So it was like an MBA, SDA Bocconi School of Management. You can look it up, all the top business schools in Europe. And one of my professors taught me that, listen, half the time, people are stuck because they don't even understand what their problem is. Oh, you think you have a problem? Oh, somebody calls you. Oh, excuse me, sir, we have a problem. We have a problem. Come and help us. Come and help us. And you say, what's the problem? The problem is, sir, the nurses, they are quarreling because this. And you ask the person again, what is the problem? So that's the problem. The nurses, they didn't allow. And you ask them, have you really gone to study the problem? See, let me tell, if I can tell you anything for free today, medical students, the best way to solve a problem is to accurately define the problem. Once you can accurately define a problem, you have solved it 50%. A lot of us are going around shouting, crying for help, going to look for help for problems that we don't even understand the problem. Problem identification. When you're writing a project to the Gates Foundation, USAID, all these guys, they'll tell you to write a whole page on what they call problem definition. Ask anybody who has done work with USAID, British government, UNFP. I've worked with them. Some of them will tell you to give them 3 pages of problem definition. You have to be able to pinpoint, this is the problem. These are the pain points. These are where the issues are hurting people. If you don't understand what the problem is, you cannot be a negotiator. A lot of people fail at negotiation because they don't understand the root cause of the problem. What exactly is causing this problem? They don't know. They don't understand root cause analysis. So know your technical details of the issue and define your problem accurately. For example, you're trying to convince a state assembly to allocate funds to a program, but you don't understand that actually over the last 3 years, that same state has suffered a dip in their internal generated revenue. You didn't know that. You didn't do your homework on that. And so you're shouting, oh my God, oh, why is the state assembly not helping us? Why are they not giving us money to do this? You have not found out that, oh, that state, they suffered a decrease in revenue over the last 3 years. So that's why the state assembly, that's why they're shouting that they cannot give you that money. So how can you downsize your budget? Instead of making your project 5 years, can you make it 3 years? Because this state has suffered a loss recently. That is root cause analysis. You need that to be a negotiator. The next thing is be your own devil's advocate. In other words, try and put yourself on the opposing side of your argument. So this is you. This is your argument. You are proposing to do this. Now, put yourself on the other side that if I was on the other side and I wanted to attack myself, what point will I use to attack myself? So, for example, you are saying you want more insecticide-treated nets for all the primary healthcare centers in Oyo State, right? Okay. Who are the people that are trying to block that? And what are the likely reasons they will have for blocking you? You have to think like your enemy. Yes. In negotiation, you have to tell yourself, this is what you want to achieve. Yes. But what is that person who wants to block me? What are they thinking? Why are they thinking like that? And what is their valid reason? Yes. You have to find a valid reason for the opposing side. Yes. To be a negotiator, find out why the other person is disagreeing with you and make it make sense to yourself that that's true. This person should have a right to actually disagree with me because this. Do research, find out why that person disagrees with you, and let it make sense to you. That's when you're on your path to excellent negotiation. The next one is, before you deliver your proposal, ask the other side about the issue and try to agree with them that it's a problem. Now, when you come and meet your nurses, you're an emergency room physician, the HOD has sent you a junior doctor, a resident, to have a meeting with the nurses over the emergency room situation. The first thing you need to do is discuss with them so that both of you can agree that it is a problem. Let me tell you the thing that a lot of people fail. A lot of people fail at negotiation for this reason. They fail to convince the other side that the problem that they have in their mind is a problem. What if you go and sit down with these nurses and the nurses tell you, sir, there's no problem. They don't have any problem with our emergency room. It's okay. Yes, patients stay for 4 hours, but that's not an issue. It's okay. Once you start on that note, you know that you are not ready for negotiation yet. If you are negotiating for something because there is a problem, the first step is to develop a shared understanding of that problem with the opposing side. Make sure that person on the other side agrees with you that this is a problem. Now, they may not agree with you on how to solve the problem. You might have your own idea about how you want to solve the problem. They might have their own idea that they think is better than yours on how to solve the problem. But they at least both of you must agree that that problem exists. Where the other person does not agree the problem exists, you have a problem. You cannot negotiate successfully. So if you are trying to communicate to the National Assembly in Abuja that they should donate more money for maternal and child health, you have to show them the proof that maternal mortality is a problem in Nigeria and help them agree with you that it is a problem. Of course, that would be easy, right? If you can show evidence, you can show your data, you can show all of that. If you don't have data to show, the maternal mortality ratio in Nigeria is very high, one of the highest in the world. If you don't have data to show that infant mortality is one of the highest in the world in Nigeria, they can't agree with you that it's a problem. So develop that shared understanding. Let them understand that, oh, wow, doctor, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We didn't know it was existing. But now that you have taught us about it, yes, we agree. It is a problem. That is your first win in negotiation. You have gotten the other side to agree that there is a problem. All right. Now, so that's that, right? Now, the next thing you want to do now is after you have agreed, after you have gotten them to agree that there's a problem, right? Now you now deliver your proposal gently. Now, I said gently, I didn't say shyly. You have to be confident. So you said, Honorable Speaker of the House of Assembly, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, thank you for your service to our country. And thank you for agreeing with me that maternal mortality is a problem in Nigeria. Then you now propose what your solutions are. You do it gently, but do it confidently. Sit up. Don't slouch, don't be shy. Look them in the eye and tell them, these are your solutions. These are your solutions, and tell them why it will work. Give them data, give them charts, give them success stories. Oh, sir, this has been tried in Mexico and it worked. This has been tried in Thailand and it worked. It has even been tried in Ghana next door, and it has worked successfully. We think it can work in Nigeria. Show them the data. And not just your own data they can verify on the internet, World Bank, WHO, Johns Hopkins. Now, another thing you can do is you can tell them a little of the problem. So tell them the pros of your solution, but just tell them maybe like 1 or 2 cons. Don't tell them too many cons, because they'll be like, okay, so the proposal is dead on arrival. So just tell them like 1 or 2 cons, but tell them like 10 for every 15 or 10 pros. Just tell them like 1 or 2 cons. But as you told them those 1 or 2 cons, tell them how you're trying to mitigate those cons, how those cons are not really an issue. All right. And then the next thing you do, yes, telling them the cons makes it realistic. Exactly. You have to be very realistic. You have to let them understand that these are the issues. Yes, these are my proposals, and these are some of the drawbacks, but we can manage them, and this is how we manage them. The next thing you want to do is you want to seek immediate feedback. So the next thing you want to tell them is, okay, you have my proposal. We both agree, first of all, we both agree that there's a problem, and now you have my proposal. Okay, sir, so what are your thoughts? Ask them immediately. Don't say, can you send us your feedback? They might be the one that say, oh, we'll get you feedback next week, next month, whatever. But ask for feedback immediately. Say, any questions? Yeah. And then once they start bringing the questions, if you're very intelligent, which I expect you to be, if you're very smart, if you did your homework very well, and if you're a subject matter expert, if you studied the technical issues very well, 95% of the problems or the questions they should ask you should already be in your head. You should already have answers to them ready. If you really know maternal health, if maternal health is really your expertise, and that you have worked so hard to the level that you are delivering a proposal, yes, expect the questions you ask. Yes, you have to. Out of every 10 questions they ask you, you should have expected 9 of them. Only one should be maybe like, oh, you didn't expect that. You should do your homework so well that you should expect their questions. And because you've expected them, you've prepared your answers already, give them those answers. Don't tell them, oh, we'll get back to you. No, give them those answers. For that 1 or 2 questions that you didn't prepare for, look for something in your head. If you're an expert, you should have read about how this was done in Ghana, how this was done in Rwanda, how it was successful in South Africa, and bring those examples and say, we can work something out. Don't just tell them, oh, we'll get back to you. I don't know the answer. I'll speak to my boss. I'll speak to my Oga. Don't do that. All right? But sometimes they might still want you to get back to them. No problem. Tell them you'll speak to other people. You set up another meeting. But let that be like a last resort. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is keep the communications lines open. Keep the communication lines open. Don't just go to the National Assembly. You took a flight from Ibadan. You took a flight from Ibadan to Abuja. You lodged in a hotel for 3 nights. You had a meeting with the National Assembly, and you didn't take the phone number and email addresses of the legislative aides that work with the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Assembly. You didn't take the phone number and email address of the Speaker himself, but Abdul himself, so that you can follow up. Negotiation is not a one-day thing. You have to follow up. You always have to follow up. So you have to keep the communication lines open. And then go back home to Lagos or wherever you're from and tell your superiors and your supervisors, this was what we achieved in Abuja, this was what we negotiated with, and our next meeting is next week. Our next meeting is next month. And even between that time and the next month, you're sending emails, just trying to check on them, how they're doing, did they see the power, what did they think? You have to keep the communication lines open if you want to be an excellent negotiator. So that is all. And then you just repeat that cycle until you achieve what you want to achieve. So on the final notes, I'll just end up by saying, stay legal, stay ethical, and stay moral. So that's all. So I'll take questions now.
Thank you so much, sir, for this session. It was really inspiring. Thank you so much, sir. It was so enlightening. We appreciate it. So it's time for questions now. So if you have any question, you can raise up your hands, then he will call you up to ask your questions. Please, if you have any question, raise up your hands.
So the way the Zoom works, I can't see everybody's face at the same time. So okay, Deizwa raised hand. Okay, sorry, Deizwa, you can speak.
Thank you very much for everything you have said. Everything made excellent sense. However, there's what I want to say is a topic like abortion now, because I'm sure everything that's been happening in the US, everyone knows what's going on. A topic like abortion is a very delicate topic. Mm-hmm. And he said stay ethical, moral, and legal. Mm-hmm. Those 3 points now are actually the bedrock of lots of debates having to do with abortion. I
Okay.
picked that topic because it's a huge problem.
Absolutely.
Actually, hasn't even gotten to Nigeria yet.
Mhm.
It's still in the US. So if you now want to pitch a negotiation on abortion, how will you present it in a way that, okay, let's say I'm not pro-life. Let's assume that I'm not pro-life, but I'm actually for the idea that for certain weeks, abortion should be legal. Like let's say 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. But a lot of people, religion and all, morals and all, how will you now twist your words to convince the other side to see from your own view? Because a lot of people are really emotional. Some people tend to cloud their sense of reasoning with emotions, so they won't even want to even hear your own side at all. They're just all being, no, it's a sin. So how will you now do something like that?
Thank you very much. So the simple answer, first of all, I'm going to correct you when you said it hasn't really gotten to Nigeria. So a few days after that Roe versus Wade, that Dobbs versus Jackson decision in the Supreme Court in the US, that overturned Roe v. Wade, I live in America, right? But I always check Channels TV news every time so that I know what's going on in Nigeria. A few days after that, the Lagos state released a statement on abortions. I haven't read the entire article because I was busy. I was working on a research project over the weekend. But something happened there. So if you go on channels or go on Google and just type Lagos State abortion, there's a new process. I wouldn't say it's a law. There's a new process they just released about how to carry out abortion when it is medically appropriate or something along those lines. So I just read the highlight. I didn't read the details. But this just shows you that Nigeria is discussing these issues. It's not limited to America. When I was working in the WHO in 2012, this was 10 years ago, I was an intern in WHO in Switzerland, Geneva. A professor gave me a book and he said, Luther, you're from Nigeria. Are you going back to Nigeria? I said, yes. He said, please take this book and show them that we're not trying to kill their babies, but we're only trying to say that when you legalize abortions, people will likely have it in a safe space. So a safe abortion, by definition, is an abortion that was carried out by somebody who was qualified to do it and also did it in a safe environment, like a hospital, right? But when you don't make abortion legal, people will go and do it outside with quacks, you have people that are not qualified. But if you make it legal, then people will have it safe. So yes, that's that. But to answer your specific question, on how do I do that? If you go back to my presentation, I'm happy this thing is being recorded. The part where I said, know the opposing side, that is the solution to this question. So abortion is very complex. You might be having a meeting with a church. You might be having a meeting with a governor. You might be having a meeting with doctors. You might be having a meeting with Parents Teachers Association of a university. I know some private universities in Nigeria have plenty of association. So who exactly is this opposing side? If you don't know them, you cannot know how to discuss abortion with them. So that's a simple answer. I want other people to be able to ask questions. But thank you, that was a very brilliant question. But the simple answer is, who exactly are you discussing abortion with? So I'm a doctor, right? And I have interest in OBGYN. So I personally prefer that, yes, we can make abortions legal, but have a limit to it. What I don't like and I see in America is some politicians saying it's okay to have an abortion even at 8 months, 9 months. That's I don't like that. When I was in the WHO, what they taught me in WHO is abortion is safe, but up until a level. Otherwise, you're just killing the baby. That's infanticide. That's not abortion. You're killing a child. You understand? So that's my own personal belief. All right. So was there any other person who raised their hand for a question? Yes, you're welcome. Somebody else raised their hand for a question. Please go ahead. I must have seen your name somewhere. You can just shoot your question.
All right, sir. Good afternoon, sir. It was a very enlightening lecture listening to you. I've really learned a lot. My question is, concerning the Nigeria system, you at the beginning of the lecture, you talked about things that are not negotiation, things like coercion, bribery, and corruption. And as medical students who are trying to get groomed in particularly policy and also this negotiation aspect, but we know very well that the order of the day in Nigeria, it's very encompassed around these other types of non-negotiation areas like the coercion and the bribery. What will you advise us to do when we are faced with such a situation? Probably we are against people, or we are pitching our negotiation, or we are bargaining with the opposite side, in which all that they understand is bribery and corruption or coercion, or probably you are being forced from someone from above to probably douse your
That is a powerful question.
And you're in a tight space. In situations like what do you advise, sir?
That is a powerful question. That's a powerful question, Daniel. And I've had friends in Nigeria who had to resign their jobs. They were working with government. I live in Nigeria. I lived in Nigeria for so many years. You know, there's so many ministers of health that I have on my phone that I still talk to, right? I work in Abuja. A lot of people, if you look up my CV, you know where I work. So I understood the politics. I understood what was going on in the country. But yes, as a doctor, as a physician, as a specialist, as a public health person, you will find yourself in those situations where people will push you. Some of them will even openly ask you for a bribe. Some of them will openly ask you to be corrupt. Now, the best answer to that is to not engage in it. Now, you might not say, oh, sir, but if I don't engage in it, what if I lose my job? I can't feed my wife and my kids and all of that. So the solution is to not engage in bribery and corruption, because it's actually an offense. Even in Nigeria, yes, people say it's common in Nigeria, but it's an offense under the criminal code. You can go to jail for that, right? So don't commit a crime at all. So if people ask you for a bribe, do not take it, do not give it, and do not take it. Speak to your supervisor. Now, I've had friends who they went to their supervisors, and even their supervisors was the one that was even corrupting them. Yes, I've had it happen in Nigeria. When that happens, just withdraw yourself. Now, there are organizations and institutions around the world that help doctors and public health people like you, where you found yourself in a situation where you couldn't compromise your ethical standards, you couldn't do bribery and corruption, and so they kicked out of the program. Reach out to people like Mo Ibrahim Foundation, Transparency International, George Soros. You can even copy me in the email. Tell them, I was working in this country, I was working in this local government, I was doing my work as a physician, but they tried to get me to do bribery and corruption. I couldn't do it, and so I left. But now I don't have a job. Can you help me find a job? Someone somewhere will help you. That's why I put my Twitter. That's why I put my Twitter on the thing, so people can follow me on Twitter. There's so many organizations in Africa, in the US, in Britain, in the UK, that will help doctors who have been kicked out of public health positions because they didn't take bribes or they didn't give bribes. These organizations are there, but you wouldn't know if you don't talk to the right people. So let me allow other people to ask their questions. But that was a brilliant question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So Abdullahi Karimat Ayomide, yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for a wonderful session. My question is, in negotiation, after identifying key stakeholders, what do you do when these stakeholders have a fixed mindset? Say, for example, we're using abortion as a case study. How do you convince them otherwise while avoiding coercion or force so that it doesn't feel like you're trying to impose your own ideologies or values on them? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karima. The first thing you need to do is, how can you make that? If you look at the chat, somebody reached what I said, that shared problem. That's the hardest task for this kind of situation. How can you get the other side to understand that there is a problem? So you need stats. If you can show them data that shows that people that have abortion illegally, who have it unsafe, they contribute to maternal mortality. So if you can break down of all the women that die in pregnancy-related outcomes in Nigeria, of course, some bleed to death because the baby, whatever. Some had a ruptured uterus, some had preeclampsia, some had infections. But a lot of them actually died, or a sizable amount of them actually died because of unsafe abortions and septic abortions. If you don't have that data and expertise to share it with them, you cannot achieve that first step. That's the first step. You and the other side need to agree that there is a problem. So that's the solution to this, your question. The only way why you would say, oh, somebody else has a fixed mindset is because you've not been able to convince them that there's a problem. So the only reason why you say somebody has a fixed mindset is because you have not passed that my first step that I said you should pass, which is getting that other side to appreciate what you appreciate, that there is a problem in our hands. Our girls are dying. SS1 girls, SS2 girls, SS3 girls, 100-level girls are killing themselves. They're having unsafe abortions and they are dying. What do you mean? How are they dying? Show me. Show your data. You have doctors coming to testify. Actually, I treated an SS2 girl who had an unsafe abortion and she died. Actually, I treated one SS1 girl. Aha. Then you have passed that first stage. So the answer to your question, which is the fixed mindset problem, is that you have not achieved that first step. So anytime you meet somebody and you leave the meeting thinking, oh, this person has a fixed mindset. This person has a fixed mindset. They cannot listen to me. Just tell yourself that you have failed. You have failed in convincing the other side that there is a problem. So that's it. All right. Shared understanding, common understanding that there is a problem. That's the solution to the fixed mindset issue. All right.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. So any other question?
Okay, before the next question, there will be an attendance in the group chat, and those watching on YouTube, it will be sent to Telegram so they can quickly fill the form. That will be, they will sign out of the meeting as well, because we are coming to the end of the meeting. So the next person can ask your question. Okay,
how much time do we have? Do we have time for any other, after this next person, any other questions or?
Yeah, we can spare 10 minutes or 5 minutes from now.
5 minutes, okay. So we'll just take like 2 more questions. So who else is next for the questions?
I'd like to go, sir.
All right, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So can we look at the hostage situation, for example? Let's assume that a person, the relative of a patient comes in with a handgun and takes the doctor and nurses hostage, insisting that they treat his or her relative immediately. Now, do you suggest negotiation in such situation, or we should just like prioritize saving yourself immediately and run for your life? Or what do you suggest in such situation?
So in a case where there's a threat to violence, somebody comes to you with a gun, with a knife, with anything dangerous that can hurt you physically, everything I've said in the beginning of this call does not exist. That's not negotiation. That is a security situation. So you are in a security situation and you must preserve your life, preserve the life of your nurses who are working with you. So if a patient comes to you, you're treating a patient, and the patient's relative comes to you with a gun, you want to do everything that person with a gun says you should do. Okay? Okay? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And then after it has been done, of course, if you're giving your statement to the police or to the whatever, the judge will understand that you had a gun to your head. That's why you did what you had to do. Okay? So negotiation is when there is no guns. Everything I've been speaking about since 9 a.m. Philadelphia time to past 10 now has been in a situation where there are no guns, no knife, no threats. Nobody's trying to kidnap anybody. We're just wearing a tie and we're having a conversation in an office. When that becomes something like a gun, somebody's threatening you, you save your life first. Okay, so no judge is going to put a doctor in jail. No judge is going to put a doctor in jail because the doctor injected the wrong drug in a patient. If the doctor can prove that he had a gun to his head. Okay, so this is not negotiation, this is security.
Thank you, sir.
So one last question and then we'll wrap it, I think.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for the session. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sir, you mentioned several courses one can take for master's degree. So I want you to just enlighten us. Why did you take on such a course like MBA, a course in public health advocacy. What do you advise? Which one is the best one? How can we know which courses to take for master's degree?
So, if you're an MBBS or MBCHB or BDS or an ophthalmology, like optometry, whatever, it really depends on where you want to work. You have to ask yourself where you want to work, right? Most people feel safest. They feel safest getting an MPH, right? Because it's a master's in public health, and then you can now specialize. So some people will tell you, oh, my master's in public health was in epidemiology and statistics. Somebody else will say, oh, my master's in public health was in environmental health. Somebody else will say, oh, no, my master's in public health was in health policy and management, right? So if you're not sure, usually most of you might be sure. By the time you're doing house job, you start following people on LinkedIn, on Twitter, you start seeing what they're doing. You know where you want to go. Are you going MPH or are you going MBA, Masters in Business Admin? Are you going for an MS in epidemiology? Are you going for an MS in statistics? All of these things you look and always go through. Just what you need to just do is go on Google, right, and type the 2 degrees and see where somebody else has compared them. When I mean somebody else, not some random person on Reddit or anything, but someone like a university, like Oxford, Cambridge, Johns Hopkins. They will compare the 2 degrees for you, and then you can see the difference. So if you just go on Google right now, just type MPH versus MBA and type Johns Hopkins. Or you do that, type Harvard, type University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You'll see where somebody has described both degrees and what those degrees meet. And then you can choose. But ultimately, the degree you choose will depend on where you want to go, ultimately. All right, I think that should wrap it up. Or we might take one last question. I don't know what the organizers think. Otherwise, yeah, it was great speaking to everyone, and good luck with your MBBS, your MBCHB, all your exams, and make sure you're very hardworking during your house job. Yeah.
For this session, it was so enlightening. We really appreciate.
You're welcome.
Accepting our invitation. We are so delighted.
No problem. Make sure you all follow me on Twitter.
His Twitter handle in the
yes
earlier, so you can please follow him on Twitter.
Thank you so much, sir. Can we have your email, sir?
So for email, let me give you my European Union email address. So that's at alumnifellows.eui.e. All right. That's my European Union email address. So,
Thank you so much, sir, for that.
You're
Please
welcome.
follow him on Twitter. Send to the chat
Thank you,
box.
sir.
For those who are yet to sign in, the link will be closed any moment from now. To sign. I don't. It's supposed to be closed by now. So if you please do it quickly before we close it. Will be by 3:11. So thank you. Announcements that I need to pass across is concerning your course on Tuesday. Please, this time around, you share the link to a Google form. That's where you open. Yeah, so there is no like a grace of late submission or anything. By 11:59 on 5th July on Tuesday, I'm closing that form. So please let's work with the deadline. As I stated that the deadline is very strict. Please let's try and work with that deadline and submit on time. And those that are having issues with some of their group members, that maybe you are the only person working on that or something like that, please, you should contact us. We are going to bring some other people to help you work on it, because these documents are very important to us. So please, we ensure that you do it well, and please put in your best in doing this document. I saw some of the ones I saw, and some of you are not actually putting in your best. please try and put in your bags. It will actually help you. Like, I'm very serious. It will help you a lot. So, and thank you everyone for coming and for coming for today's session. If you have any complaint concerning the attendance, make sure that you send it in the next 24 hours. After that, please, no complaint will be taken again. So if you have any complaint, please for coming for today's session. Our next session will be next week Saturday. So those that next week Saturday by 2:00 p.m. the same time. We are just left with 2 more sessions to end this training. So please put in your best now. We just have a little to do. So, and also there's an announcement that I need to pass across you. You are going to do an assessment. An assessment like from the beginning of the session to the end of the session. There will be questions that you answer them. And apart from that, there will be a presentation that will be the concluding parts of the training. That will be just the conclusion. That's the presentation. That will be the concluding. So thank you. And the presentation will be set and later on. So thank you everyone for coming. Please work on your attendance.
All right. Thank you everyone. Bye.
Okay, sir. Bye, sir. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Yes,
we really
sir.
appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome.